Hey, what's up, Aquarius? Welcome to this timeless general tarot reading. You already have cards trying to stick out on the bottom for you. So, per usual, all typical disclaimers are assumed, all non-typical disclaimers are asserted. Take everything I say with a grain of salt, and only apply what is meant to you to your experience. I am not responsible for any misuse of the truth imparted through these messages. With that being said, make sure to check the timestamps below. That actually was trying to come out for you twice. Make sure you check the timestamps below if you'd like to skip to card drops, or if you would like to skip to the conclusion. I am not going to shuffle in haste or draw cards in haste to fail my own authenticity of getting a clear message from Spirit. So, that being said, we do have this drop here. Three of Wands reversed. That is a... I'll start with this more typical notion. The typical notion of this card is that some kind of trip of traveling abroad has fallen through. That's like kind of in the material sense, a common consensus of this card. However, the energy of the card often has to do with disappointment of your outlook. So it's going to need some clarification here, but there's a good shot that you might have found yourself disappointed in your forward thinking. So things you are desiring aren't manifesting for you. Things you're anticipating aren't actually coming to fruition. And let's see what this clarifier is here. So here we have the Lover's card. So, disappointment in perhaps a long-distance relationship is one way to see this. It could also be disappointment in anticipation of a lover. It's kind of an interesting balance here. Some kind of, I mean, the cliche thing is long-distance relationship falling through. But I'm going to need a little bit more clarity here to see what else it could be trying to suggest for you. Perhaps some kind of long-distance relationship not working, but the idea that some kind of love you're anticipating is not going to pan out correctly, which is disappointing because it looks like you have genuine love for whomever this is. So maybe it's unrequited love, which is the idea that you have the love but they do not, since you're in disappointment. It is disappointing because the Lovers is in the upright, so like the energy of love is there, but it's not. There's some kind of disappointment looming over the horizon about it. If it was Lovers in reverse, it would be very simple to just claim that this is a failed relationship. So I'm not exactly sure what this is about. It might not even be a love relationship. It might be some other type of relationship. Maybe you're disappointed in somebody else you love, like a family member, or even a colleague whom you cherish, something to that effect. Whoa. So I guess those basically fall out. So now we're looking at Queen of Swords and the Sun card. It's very interesting because if anything, your disappointed outlook would lead you to be in a more negative state, but you've got this like energy of love and this energy of light. And this Queen of Swords, so usually what I try to describe about this Queen of Swords is that they're like a feminine archetype that relies on their mental capacity more than their intuitive capacity, which is very unnatural because the feminine quality by default is to rely on the intuitive notion. So the Queen of Swords is in an interesting position where they are turning away from their natural emotionality towards a more mental capacity. But the problem is it's in the upright here, so like in the upright, this Queen of Swords, oh, the other thing here is that you've got the Lovers, and the sun surrounding this Queen of Swords. So like, this is like a half notion that some kind of disappointment in your life is actually serving you, in the idea that there's something greater that is going to show up for you. And it could even be in the form of a lover. And this lover might be kind of mentalized more than emotional, so they might be like sharp-tongued, quick-witted, witty, crassy, stuff like this. But that also means to a certain extent, because it's the Queen of Swords in the upright, it's not like they're toxic in their lack of emotionality. It's just that they're actually willing to be critical, which is not something you see as often by default in a woman. Okay, so as soon as I say that, though, we get this Ten of Cups in reverse. So this is definitely a weird reading. Definitely a weird reading. We've got the sun followed by the Ten of Cups reverse. That is so strange. The Ten of Cups is like an achievement of emotional abundance. And the Ten of Cups would actually be aided by the sun, by shining the light of the sun into the situation. It's just synonymous with the energy it takes to get the Ten of Cups would be the sun. So I'm not sure why you're going from the sun to the Ten of Cups in the reverse. That is not cool. It almost speaks to sort of what I'm saying. This Queen of Swords is muddled in their emotions. And that lack of emotionality is like, to a certain extent, resisting their ability to achieve this emotional abundance properly. Which is very disappointing, because this is bringing it full circle in this disappointment. This is very strange. It's almost like in the short term you find yourself in love and happiness with this Queen of Swords, but like in the long term it's not going to yield the stability you want in terms of emotional abundance, and it plays towards your like, okay, so even here now we have the King of Swords coming out in reverse and the Hanged Man in reverse. So this is very tough. This is actually very tough because these energies are all very mingled together. I'm actually not finding a lot of consistency in this read for you. Like, it speaks to your disappointment, perhaps in finding some kind of love. And that might be because you're attracting yourself to individuals that are not as emotional as you might prefer. But then like this, you've got this Sun card mixed into the process. So it's almost as if this Queen of Swords is illuminating something with her truth. That's very disappointing, because the result is a lack of emotional abundance and fulfillment. And then this King of Swords, severely disappointed King of Swords. Who maybe they really believed that this Queen of Swords could be their counterpart. It's almost like this is speaking to a fling. There is some kind of, the disappointing outlook is like the idea that while you can have like a short-term lover relationship with this Queen of Swords and it might be good, it's not meant for long-term. And that's something that like kind of bursts this King of Swords bubble. And in that kind of emotional apathy, they are falling into the same patterns. They're getting stuck, like, not understanding why this keeps happening to them. Which just goes back to this. This is kind of faulty outlook, and this is faulty outlook. So you've got this pattern completing here. So I'm not sure if you're the King of Swords or the Queen of Swords. If you're the King of Swords, it looks like you're in line for a heartache. Like, and it is very disappointing here because, like, for whatever reason, this message is signaling that the Queen of Swords, whomever this is seeing the truth in a more clear sense. The light is shining for them. Like, the light is on their side, unfortunately. So, like, this leading energy of the lack of foresight would lead this King of Swords to not see what this Queen sees. And that could set them up for this emotional apathy. So, like, maybe there's a long-distance relationship that's destined to fall through, and even though you're finding short-term love, the Queen understands that it's not a realistic long-term relationship, that this Ten of Cups is not actually realistic. That this emotional abundance, it's not in the cards, so to speak, for this relationship. And that just really puts this king down. And the king is finding themselves trapped in... They're trying to, like, fight it with their mental energy. But it's not... Which is more natural for the King of Swords, of course, because it's mental sword energy. But it's almost signifying here that it's a repeating pattern, almost. That this lack of accurate outlook is, like, it's almost destined to repeat itself. So, like, it's sort of a call to really take a step back and accept in your heart and soul why you really are getting into these relationships. It's almost as if you know why you're really getting into the relationship and you understand the reality of the relationship, but, like, there's a point where you, like, get it in your head, so to speak, that there's more to this than that. And this just isn't playing out to be correct. It's like, for whatever reason, this Queen of Swords is the one who's seeing the light. And they're the one who has they're the one who's got their, like, finger on the pulse of the reality of the situation. So, I don't even know what else there is to be said here. It's kind of a sign of just... like, to a certain extent, it's kind of about not lying to yourself about the quality of these relationships and the purpose of these relationships. So maybe it might just be that you and the Queen aren't on the same page about this, but the sad part here is that the Queen, and there we have Seven of Swords. I'm not sure how this is playing into the mix. How is this playing into this? The only thing that really comes to mind off the top of my head is that it's kind of a sign, as I was saying, to take a different approach. There is a direct approach that you are used to relying on. And I'm not saying, like, in terms of approaching people for relationships. There's some kind of process that you typically rely on, some kind of direct process. And since this King of Swords energy is here, like, that process is very likely heavy mental energy. Very heavy reliance on mental energy. So we don't really have any cards of intuition here. The closest thing would basically be the Hanged Man, which is close to the Seven of Swords here. There isn't any High Priestess card, there isn't any Moon card. There isn't like the Empress here. So there aren't any, like, really direct cards about intuition except for the Hanged Man, which is kind of a call to intuition, because there's like blocked mentalism here, which this King of Swords actually might be stuck in if they're falling into disappointment. The Seven of Swords is basically calling for an indirect approach. It's calling for trying something different. Not battering, not trying to use the battering ram to break down the door. Like, instead of breaking the 5th battering ram on the door that still isn't going down, maybe there's like a secret way around the wall. Or maybe there's actually a way to like climb over the wall. So like, that's basically what this is coming down to. Whoops, it looks like I maybe just scooched over a little too much here. That's kind of essentially what it's boiling down to, so I definitely apologize. And I'm actually not sure if you are the... It could serve either way. Maybe there's people who are in this position as the Queen of Swords, seeing this clearly, in which case, like, maybe you aren't communicating, or maybe you are communicating clearly enough what kind of relationship this is, but this King of Swords just, for some reason, they just won't hear it properly. They have a different dream in their head, an unrealistic dream in their head, and even though they might use their words to say they're on board with that, in their heart of hearts they are not. And then to the converse of that, if you're the King of Swords, you are the one who is falling into this disappointment, definitely falling into disappointment about the utter reality of this relationship, about why ever this relationship is unrealistic. And if you keep trying to, like, if you keep getting stuck relying on this faulty mentalism, this faulty outlook, you're just gonna keep like being disappointed and not finding what you want. So if you really want this Ten of Cups energy in the upright, you're not gonna find it from like these types of relationships here. You're not gonna find it from these flingy relationships, and you're not gonna find it from lying to yourself about like why you are getting into these relationships. Or maybe it's just the fact that you're like, unfortunately, it's kind of an unfortunate relationship trap. It's also sort of speaking to the idea that you have the idea of this abundance in your heart, but this queen doesn't. This queen is just flinging with you. Like, you're setting yourself up for severe disappointment when you aren't like anticipating that properly. So maybe you might just be like a very young man who just doesn't understand feminine relationship tendency, in which case falling into this is like so natural for a young guy like that. Like, so I can't blame you for that. They don't always work the way the mind thinks they should. It takes some getting used to how many options they have and how that makes it very easy for them, especially in a long distance relationship, to not be focusing on this because they have so many options on the table. And it's disappointing because like they're even validated in this according to this reading, which I think is disappointing, but unfortunately the universe wants that resonance. So like the universe is on board, even though our mental minds might not be, as guys. So that's all I can really say here is, I don't even think there's anything else to clarify. It's just kind of a disappointing message for you. And it's set up to be like, it's set up for like multiple perspectives even through this read. And it's just, this combo is such a disappointment. Sun to the Ten of Cups reverse, that is so disappointing. Like, the Sun in the upright should be empowering a Ten of Cups experience. It shouldn't be like validating the unrealisticness of it, but that's sort of what's coming out here. So like, I don't even think there's anything else I can clarify. Let me see here. The reading's at 19, 20 minutes, so I think I'm gonna conclude the reading here. So let me conclude this. So there is some kind of outlook, whether that be about a long distance relationship or just outlook in general, that is going to be disappointing for you. In this context, the idea is that this is about a relationship. So the idea is that a relationship is going to fall through. A relationship is going to be, you're not building the quality of this relationship on sturdy foundation, it's on hollow mentalism. And the outlook that you are using to build up the momentum for this relationship, you are misaligned with what that is all about. And it could even be about a long distance relationship, which is even more difficult to sort out. And whomever this is about, if you are this Queen of Swords, you see that clearly, and you understand that this is like a fling. It's not like marriage and family and long term for the rest of life kind of thing. You see it as a fling. It's a lover's relationship, especially if it's long term. Because if you're a feminine in a long term, or if you're like a feminine in a long distance relationship, it's only a matter of time before something else comes along for you. And it's not realistic, whatever this relationship is. And you're actually trying to shine that light onto whomever you're leaving, basically. And you're hoping to get through to them. The problem is, whomever this relationship is with, they had built up this idea in their head that they were going to reach this Ten of Cups in the upright, that they were going to, have a family with you, have emotional abundance with you, long-term stability with you, and it was just never the case. It was never realistic. And that's something that you are going to have to illuminate to them, the true nature of this relationship. And unfortunately, that's going to be very disappointing for this individual. They had it in their head as this mental sword energy, that's what this was all about. And it's showing here that they had that built up on this faulty mentalism. They were not taking in a more wholesome reality of the situation. And they're actually getting called here to take a different approach with how they mentalize the nature of these relationships. And there's actually two signs here of faulty foresight, so to speak. And that's essentially a call to not rely on your mentalism, because their mentalism keeps calculating a certain truth, but that truth is not a more wholesome and utter truth baked in by intuition. And if they don't try something different, they are just going to keep repeating this cycle. They're going to keep falling into this trap of expecting more than this relationship can yield. So if you're the Queen of Swords and you're in this situation, have some sympathy for this king, because sometimes that's just the nature of being a young man, or even just being a man who isn't as familiar with feminine quality and feminine variety, especially in a long-term relationship. And especially if you're a young girl, there's very young girls aren't always, in today's day and age, interested in getting locked down like this so quickly. But sometimes for guys, it's the first thing we'd think of. So there's a call to sympathy here. And it's not and you're not even getting called out as being toxic, which from the male's perspective, it can feel really painful and it can be really easy to be bitter. But the universe is suggesting that you're in the right on this one, that you have the more realistic idea here. If you're the King of Swords in this instance, I have sympathy for you, and I apologize for this, because I've been in this situation where I've got it in my head what the relationship is all about, and it's just it falls through. It happens. And for some reason, the universe thinks that we have to bear that burden to grow. And that's what you're being called to do here, is find a different approach to bust out of these sort of faulty mentalisms and faulty foresights and find a more intuitive capacity, which isn't natural for the King of Swords, which is a more mental energy. But that's what you've got to do if you're this King of Swords. If you're going through this heartache, if your emotional stability is falling through, But if this is some kind of like really long distance relationship, it's hard to build a true stability on that. I mean, I don't have all the details about these people, but the universe is unfortunately standing with the feminine on this one. And that they're standing with the idea that the feminine has, they're illuminated to the truth more than like this whomever is the basically whomever is going to be disappointed in this relationship and the outcome of this relationship. So I'm sorry if this is you, and if this is you, then, you know, try and have some sympathy. Like, it's not like, you know, like very cliche-ly saying, oh, he'll just get over it. Like, that's very lacking in sympathy. Which I wouldn't even be surprised, because that's what a Queen of Swords is doing, is they're the least emotional, or not, they're not the least emotional queen. Well, to a certain extent they are, actually. The least emotional queen. They're the least emotionally inspired queen, and the most mentally inspired queen, so they might be extremely crass in this situation. It's not suggesting that you're going to turn into that toxic notion, but try to have a little bit of sympathy for this, for whomever this is. Because this is very disappointing. Severely disappointing. Especially if they're like, if their foresight's a little off, and their realistic outlook is a little off. Because that's going to make it hurt that much more if they're a mental king who's trying to rely on their mentalism. And you might even be able to incite some wisdom into them about trying something different, about having a more realistic idea here. So, not sure. Maybe both. Maybe there will be both types of viewers watching this. So, I hope that whatever this relationship is, it's not in the cards that it's going to stick. It's just not in the cards. And this King of Swords, do not get stuck, trapped in the pain of this, because then you'll never find what you're actually looking for. You've got to try something different. You can't keep getting stuck in these the same relationship patterns that builds this like sort of delusion about the reality of, like, the actual reality, like the realisticness of finding this relationship if you're just doing like a long distance fling or something. So that's basically all this is. It's, you know, it's a call to sympathize for this queen, sympathize with this fella, and then for the king, try and be more honest with your heart about the realisticness of relationships like this, and work on not building up unrealistic notions with someone who isn't actually going to want to reciprocate that with you. And if you can do that, there's a good shot that you can get out of this toxicity and actually find this happiness that you're looking for. So, all right, I think that's going to be it for this, Aquarius. Thank you for watching this, and take care, and good luck to the both of you.